video 4 here, and we're going to continue the work on our Crokinole board. All our geometry is done. I mean, you could add in some texture if you wanted to. You could add in some numbers. If you want to do that, just come and see me. But at this point, we're going to call it finished, and we're going to start assigning some tool paths to this geometry, all our circles and lines here. So let's go ahead, and you got to make sure that you have as your machine, and you go under machine type router, Larkin cam tool. If it's not there, you have to go to manage list and add it in. So you go and find, well, it's already there, but if we wanted to add a machine, we'd have to click add, okay, and then go ahead and select it. But we already have that done. It probably was already done in video 1. I almost can't remember anymore. And you know, you want to make sure that your piece of material, we went 28 by 28. And it's going to be a 1/2 inch thick. So we're going to go from there. This is all good, and now we have to start telling it what to do. One of the first things we could do is tell it we want to cut this circle out. So we want to cut completely through the piece of wood. So we go up to Tool Paths, Contour, and go ahead and click OK. Now we want to select it. We can use the chain function. So here, make sure it's on chaining. Go ahead and click that. And we go ahead and click the OK check mark. This is a contour tool path. We're going to select our tool. Our tool is going to be a 1/4 inch straight bit. There are a lot of tools here. I wish I could take some of them out, but I can't. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch straight bit to make that cut. Go ahead and click OK. We've selected that. Holder we don't need to worry about. Cut parameters we do. And we want to just leave computer off. Oops, sorry. I want to leave computer on. And we're going to leave it on the left side, I think. Now this, we're going to have to let this go through, and we'll show you what that means. Depth cuts, we do not want to do that in one cut. A 1/2 inch is way too thick for these machines. So we click depth cuts. It's going to do 0.1 inch at a time. So it's going to do approximately 4 passes and then do the final cut through. So it just goes ahead and saves wear and tear on the machine, stops bits breaking, just stops things from going badly. Lead in, lead out, we don't need to do that, so we're going to uncheck that. One thing we do want to do though is add tabs. Now tabs are going to, let's just go back over here. It's going to leave, like this is going to be a whole piece of wood here. It's going to leave little bridges between what we cut out and the scrap. Excuse me. So we're going to add 4 of those so that this, when we cut this out completely, it doesn't just become loose and can shift and get caught by that spinning router bit. So we're going to say tabs. We're going to say manual. I want them to be a bit thicker though. I want them to be 0.1 thick. And the width, we're going to make 1. We're going to make it 1 inch wide and 0.1 of an inch thick. And we're going to say position. We could let it do it on its own, but let's have some control here. Click position. And now we're going to select that chain. And see, that's how wide my tab will be. So I'm going to put 1 at each corner. Doesn't really matter where, but that will just stop this from coming loose when we cut through. Select chain to add tabs to, which we did, and enter when done. So let's do that. Hit enter, and our contour dialog box pops back up. Now the last thing we have to change is linking parameters, and we're going to change all of these to absolute. The depth of our cut is going to be negative because we want to go into the wood, 0.51. That's going to take us just that 10,000ths of an inch through to the bottom and cut that circle completely out. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now, I'm going to zoom in here for a second. You're going to see, remember I was talking about whether do we have to make a change here in the parameters, but here's our actual geometry. It's going to cut inside that line, which we don't want it to do. So we want it to cut on the outside to make a 26-inch circle. Let's go back to parameters. Cut parameters, and we're going to say compensation direction right. You'll see how that changed, which side the cutter is going to be on. If I go left, if I go right. So we're going to leave it at right, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. This is now what's considered a dirty toolpath because we made a change. We have to recalculate it. I'm going to go ahead and select all operations, regenerate that toolpath, and now you'll see that light blue line there, that's where the cutter is going to run, and it's going to run on the outside of the geometry now. So we'll end up with a circle that's exactly 26 inches in diameter. I'm just going to recenter that for us. Okay, so next, what do we need to do? We need to have another toolpath. We need to have a toolpath that's going to engrave these lines and these circles and arcs, okay? Because that's going to be part of the gameplay. We're going to go this time, it's another contour toolpath, so contour. And now we're going to start selecting. We can do this, we can select every one here, do our 3 circles first. So now we're going to do a small engraving there. It's going to be like, instead of painting lines on, we're going to engrave small little lines in there. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Contour, we want to select that again. Our tool is going to change this time though. We are going to use a 45 degree, what do they call it? 3/4 inch 45 degree with a .005 tip. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Our cut parameters, we're going to leave it, we're going to turn that off this time because we don't want it to run on either side. We want it to run right in the middle. So that'll go ahead and do that there. Depth cuts we do not need. We are going to do such a small cut. We don't need any lead in, lead out, any of this stuff here. We don't need any tabs because we're not cutting anything out. We're just engraving a line. Be just like drawing it on the board, but we're going to take a little bit off. Our linking parameters will all be absolute again, and this time our depth is going to be negative .05. And we'll try that. If it's not deep enough, we'll make a change and run it again, but now we can go ahead and click OK. And now you will see that toolpath is running right down the middle of that geometry. Okay. Now, a couple other toolpaths here. We have to do 2 more for this. And we're going to go ahead and click toolpaths. We're going to do a pocket this time because we're going to have it pocket out this center here for us, and for where the Crokinole disc can go in, we're going to go ahead and click that. Click OK again. A lot of it's very similar, but you know, we've got to go through this pocket. Our tool this time will still be the 1/4 inch straight bit. We'll be able to run the cutout and the pocket at the same time because it's the same tool. Cut parameters, this all stays the same. We're just going to leave that. Roughing, we don't need to worry about that at all. Finishing, we don't need to worry about that. Depth cuts, we don't need to worry about that either because we're only going to go 1/4 inch deep. Let's do a depth cut, why not? We'll have it run twice, and then it's only going to go 0.1 at a time, and that'll just make it run a little bit smoother. So let's do that. And then our linking parameters again, so absolute every time. And our depth here is 1/4 inch, so that's negative. And then if you weren't sure how to figure out the decimal of a fraction, it's the numerator divided by the denominator, so it's 1/4. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. If you don't believe me, pull out your phone, your calculator, or ask Siri. Go ahead and click OK. And you'll see there it is pocketing inside there, and it will cut out that absolute perfect 1 3/8 inch hole. What's next? We have one more toolpath we have to do. So let's go ahead and do that toolpaths. And this time we're going to do a drill toolpath, and we're going to select those points because that's where we're going to do it. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 points to take care of. Go ahead and click OK. Toolpath type is drill. Cut parameters, that's all good. Linking parameters, here we go. And we're going to have it go to a depth of negative 0.1. The tool we're going to use is that 45 degree bit, because all we're doing is we're just going to mark where those are going to go. We're going to actually drill those with a hand drill, just because we don't really have the right router bit to drill that properly. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Linking parameters, everything should be good here. Oh, and look, if you weren't sure about, I just noticed this, I've never noticed this before. Remember what I said, if you weren't sure about what the fraction would be, there actually is a calculator you can bring up there. Never done, oh, tool diameter, look at that. Add depth, override. Okay, perfect. Go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and click OK. Now from here, we're gonna just see what this looks like. We're gonna run a simulation. We always want to run a simulation before we would ever cut anything. All operations are selected, we regenerate them, and then we go ahead and verify selected operations. It's going to turn all that geometry and tool pathing into the programming, the X's, Y's, and Z's that will allow us to cut this out. So go ahead and click play. And you will see, okay, this is really good. We got our bridging there. Just tilt that. Here's our piece of wood. Let's go back to looking at, oh, let's do that again. We'll just resimulate that since I made a mistake. Now, one thing I don't like is how big this is here. I just wanted to put tiny little drill marks in there. So we're going to go ahead and make a change there. Let's close this. We'll make mistakes. And the one that is this last drilling one. And we're going to change this to -0.05. And so it doesn't go so deep this time. We have to regenerate all those. And then we go ahead and click go. And it's going to put little tiny dots in there. We may have to make that a little bit deeper even. Oh boy. You ever have one of those days? Let's make it -0.1. Go ahead and click OK. Let's regenerate that. Let's run that again. And you will see it'll put those little points in there, and that's where we will be drilling our holes for the screws for those pins. Now, we're done with Mastercam at this point, except we have to export, we have to post this as our G-code file. So we have to put that onto a USB stick now. Let's go ahead and save this. We're going to go File, Save As. You know, you'll call it Crokinole. Let's call it Crokinole Master File. Just that way we know which one it is. And now we have to post a G-code. We will do that next.